Hello and welcome everyone, I'm Izzy at Minerva. We're going to be looking at how to hack and change and alter our very own Jane Dress sewing pattern, which is a lovely cocoon dress as you can see in the image next to me here. And I am going to look at how to alter that pattern in order to create a top that has a keyhole neckline. So these are two lovely little changes. Obviously you could just choose to do one change or you could do the other. You could just add the keyhole neckline to the dress pattern that you've got, or you could just shorten it to make a top. If you know that the top is fitting really nicely, it's so lovely to be able to just make that into multiple different types of garments, whether it's tops, dresses, whatever. So today, these are the two changes that we're going to do. As you follow along today, you're going to need your standard pattern drafting and changing and sewing tools, which are listed next to me here, and you're also going to need your copy of the Jane Dress. Don't forget to cut that out in your size before you start following along today. If you pop over to our Minerva YouTube channel, you will find that there is a playlist dedicated to our Minerva patterns. And in that playlist, you're going to find a video all about fabric recommendations for the Jane Dress. You're also going to find a video about how to sew the pattern as per the original instructions. And that sew along is on our YouTube channel. And also a video all about how to fit the Jane Dress. So those are three videos which are absolutely perfect for you if you are wanting to understand how to sew this dress in a bit more detail. In today's video, I'm going to show you step by step how to alter the pattern in order to create this little keyhole neckline top. And then I'm also going to show you the sewing steps for any steps that are different to the original pattern instructions. Before we get started today, I should mention what I'm wearing today, which is the Sagebrush top by Friday Pattern Company, and you can purchase that on our Minerva website. Okay, let's get straight on into hacking our pattern in order to create this new look. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is look at our front pattern pieces, pattern piece A and pattern piece B. Now we do have pattern piece C, which is the pattern piece for the lower part of the dress and also for the pocket. However, because we're just doing a top alteration, we don't need to look at that pattern piece, so we can remove pattern piece C completely. And we can also ignore this line that says pocket placement line. We can just completely ignore that, that's irrelevant. We're not adding a pocket to our top. So first of all, we need to decide where our hemline needs to go. Now for everyone, that's going to be different, depending on what length you want your top to be. I'm going to draw my line at the hip line, the approximate hip line here, and I'm just going to send that line straight across, perpendicular to the centre front line. I'm going to send that across both pattern pieces. Now, we mustn't forget that we will have a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance where it's going to turn up by 1.5 centimetres. So the actual garment is going to be just slightly higher, 1.5 centimetres above my approximate hip location. That just ensures that it's like nice and long enough to be able to tuck into jeans or do a nice little French tuck, or, you know, just leave it as it is. So remove the extra volume of the pattern piece. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is actually to look at this keyhole neckline, which is going to become our feature. Now really, all we need to do is to draw the shape that we want. We could do all sorts of different shapes at this point. You could do like a little triangle shape where it would look like, you know, half a triangle. Obviously it's going to be reflected at the centre front line, so just half of the front pattern piece, isn't it? Or you could do like a teardrop shape, or you could just do a really tiny little slit. It's completely up to you. Now we do have an approximate bust level notch, which is down here. So the first thing I would do is just to mark on the centre front line where your bust is. And really, for me, I don't want to go any lower than that. In fact, I'm going to bring it up a few centimetres above that. So I want the bottom of my keyhole to be about 5 centimetres above my bust. I'm going to mark that point there. That's where I want the bottom to be. And then I'm just going to draw a line that is perpendicular to the centre front at that point. So I've got a nice straight line. I want the line to be straight at that point because I want it to match up like really beautifully at the bottom, so it's going to line up perfectly. I don't want there to be like a sharp point at the bottom of my shape. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just working from the top up there, I'm just going to draw a little curve like that. And then I'm just going to bring it in so that it's hitting that line nice and straight down at that point there. And for me, that is all I want to do. I don't want to make any more changes to that shape. Just keep it really nice and simple. So let's cut out that volume now. Now the next thing we want to do is to work out how we're going to finish this. Obviously it's got a lovely curve here, so really I'm wanting to finish it with some bias binding. So let's create a pattern piece for our bias binding that's going to go round that hole. Okay, so using a tape measure, just measure the extent and the length of that shape that you've cut out. For me it's 11 centimetres. So using a new sheet of paper, draw a line that is the length of that shape here. For me, 11 centimetres. Extend the line out so it is double the length that it needs to be. So for me, 22 centimetres is how long it needs to be. And then we're just going to draw another line that is parallel at 4 centimetres, and then just square that off. You might also find it really helpful just to dash a little line down the middle, just to annotate that this is going to be the fold line for your bias binding. And then we also want to mark our grain line at 45 degrees to the fold line. And that's just going to help it curve and stretch around the corner down there. And this becomes our keyhole binding. Let's cut that pattern piece out now. Brilliant, just like that. Now our final piece we want to work with is our neckline pattern piece, which is this one right here. The neckline hasn't actually changed, but because we've got the keyhole neckline, I want to create a really cute little bow at the top, at the front. It's going to look really sweet. So I'm just going to extend that pattern piece now by 30 centimetres, which is going to give us enough volume to make that bow. So marker point is 30 centimetres offset from your original line, and then just square down. Wonderful, so that is a lot of little changes to the front, and we have now made all those changes, and it's time to look at the back pattern piece. Here is our back pattern piece D. If we bring our front pattern piece onto the screen here, you can see that it would line up beautifully at this notch here. I'm just going to measure the distance of the hem from that notch, which for me is 8.5 centimetres, and then I'm going to mark that distance on this pattern piece here, the side seam. Next, using the centre back as a reference, I'm going to make sure my ruler is lined up beautifully there, and I'm going to square across to that new hemline point. And then just cut along that line. And there we have it. That's the only change we need to make to the back. There are no changes to the armhole pattern piece. We haven't made any alterations to that. So we are good to go and start sewing this up. In today's video, we're using the Minerva Exclusive Boudoir Bouquet Viscose Jersey Stretch Knit fabric. As you can see, it's really stretchy in both directions, and it's going to be gorgeous for this great little top we've got happening here. As mentioned, we're going to only demo the steps that differ from the original pattern instructions. And actually with this one, there are quite a lot of differences. So to start off with, we're not going to be sewing any pockets because there are no pockets. So we're going to skip past 1, 2 and 3, simply because we're just doing a little top, aren't we? And then we're going to move straight on to 4. Now our pattern pieces for step 4, where we sew the front 2 pieces together, do look slightly different. So pattern piece B, which is this one, it obviously has no pocket, so that's the way it looks. And we know that the curved side is going to line up with the side here, and following that sort of curve of the arm side down. So all we're going to do is basically follow the instructions and put right sides together for both of those pieces, and then we're just going to pin together the front side seam on both sides of the front pattern piece, attaching the front side to the front center. So pin in place, aligning notches as you go. And once you've pinned, you can then sew using a standard seam allowance and finish. I'm going to finish using my overlocker, but you can obviously just leave it. The raw edges won't fray. It's completely up to you how you want to finish your seams. Once you've done one side, do the same for the other side. Excellent. Okay, so now we've got the center front panel attached to the side front panels, and finished them as per the instructions, so we're getting a nice sort of top shape. And now what I'd really like to do is just focus on finishing the keyhole neckline here, that little detail, before we move on to attach the sides and do the shoulders. So let's grab your keyhole binding pattern pieces, and we've just cut one of these. Now, the first thing we want to do is just prep this little pattern piece. So I'm going to fold it in half and iron it until I've got a crease down there. Then I'm going to open it up again and fold it into the centre on both of the long sides, so that effectively it's going to look like bias binding. Wonderful, just like that. So it's looking like this. It's then, when I open it up, you can see it's all folded into the middle and the whole thing has got 3 little fold lines. Turn the front over so the wrong side is facing up. Open out this little bias binding, and with the right side of the bias binding against the wrong side of the neckline, what we're just going to do is pin along where the fold line is, and we're just going to do that all the way around that keyhole neckline. Because it's a curve, you may find you just need to sort of ease that in a little bit, which is absolutely fine. Okay, so that's how it's looking now. And what we're going to do now is just sew along that folded line. And that's all we're going to do, just sew straight along there. So we're sewing the bias binding to the keyhole neckline. Wonderful. So basically it's sort of ending up looking like that. We've got the 2 pieces sewn together. Now what we want to do is to fold it over so that the raw edge of the binding matches the raw edge of the seam allowance, and then flip the whole thing over so that the bias binding covers that first line of stitches that you can see. And this is on the right side of the garment. So just pin in place, like really carefully, to make sure that that's hidden. And I'm doing it at either end to start off with, just so that I know that I can then ease it in between. Brilliant. And then once you've pinned it, we're then just going to sew really close, that 1 or 2 millimeters away from the folded edge, like all the way along, to sew the binding to that keyhole neckline. Just make sure that you're always covering the other line of stitches, and as you sew that you're just easing that over the line of stitches so you can't see it. Lovely, look, and there we've got a beautiful little keyhole neckline all ready to go. That looks so cute. I'm really happy with that. Take a little closer look to see what we've done. Can you see the stitch line there? So that's just holding it all nicely in place. Okay, the next thing to do is to do the shoulder seams as per step 6 and do the side seams as per step 7. And then you can also do the arm bands as per these steps here, 9 and 10, but we're going to do the neck band slightly differently. So do the shoulders, the side seams and the arms, and then I'll come back and join you for the next step. Okay, here's our really gorgeous little top. We've sewn it all together. The only things left to do, we've done the armbands, and the only thing left to do is the neckline and the hem. Now the hem is exactly the same as the instructions, but let's take a look at the neckline to start off with. So the first thing we're going to do is get our nice long neckband, and we're just going to tuck it under at the short side and just stitch it down up both ends of the neckband, so it's got a nice folded edge at the top. Once you've done that, the next thing to do is just basically to prep it in exactly the same way we did for that one. So we're going to fold it in half and press it, and then fold the raw edges into the middle and just press it as if it were bias binding. Great. Once you've done the neckband and you've folded it so that it's like bias binding, it's folded into the middle, then just find the center of the neckband, so the halfway point, and pop a little notch in it like I have here. I've also popped a little notch in the center back of the garment here, the neckline there, and all we're going to do is just open out the bias binding and pin together at that point. So we've got the wrong side of the garment touching the right side of the bias binding, and then basically just continue to pin all the way along the neckband on either side of that centre back. Once you hit the keyhole neckline, you are going to have an extended bit of the neckband, simply because remember we're going to use it for a little tie at the end. So once you've done one side, just continue to pin the other side in the same way. Excellent, and once you've pinned that all the way around, we're just going to sew it using the folded line on the neckband as a guide. This will be slightly less than 1.5 centimetres. Excellent, so what we're going to do next is we are going to start down at one end of the neckband here, and we're going to fold it along the original lines that we pressed it at, and fold it over and onto itself, and then pin it in place, just like that. Continue up the rest of that band, folding it into the middle, pinning it in place. And then when you get to the actual neckband, so the top of the keyhole neckband here, all we're going to do is continue that process of just folding it over, but this time we're going to make sure that our neckband is hiding the stitch line that we've just sewn. And this is going to give us a gorgeous little finish. And then just continue, as we did with the keyhole neckband, just to keep folding it over so that it's hitting the stitch line really nicely and comfortably all the way around. Wonderful, and then once you've finished pinning all of that lovely neckband, we're just going to sew it in the same way we did with the keyhole neckline, except for we're just going to start at one end and sew all the way one end of the band, and sew all the way along, continue all the way around the neckline and sew off to the other end, just to completely sew that whole neckband together. Excellent, so there we have it, a lovely, cute little keyhole neckline with the opportunity to have a really sweet little bow at the top, or just to leave it loose, however you would prefer. So we've done all the steps that deviate from the main instructions, and you can just finish your garment now and hem it as per the original instructions. So finish it, overlock it, and turn it up 1.5 centimetres and top stitch in place. Then let's go see what it looks like. So here we go, we've got an absolutely stunning little keyhole neckline top with a gorgeous little bow at the front just to tie it all together. Completely transformed that dress. It's not even a dress anymore, it's just using the pattern as a base to create a really comfy, loose, free-flowing, gorgeous little summer top. So there we go, we've made the changes to the Jane dress. We have altered it and created a gorgeous little top. I'm so chuffed with that, and I hope you really enjoy wearing that hack at home if you choose to follow along today. So thank you for joining me. I've been Izzy at Minerva, and I'll see you next time.